Hey, Laura Spalding here with Spalding Decon. I've been in the business for 16 years. One of the most challenging projects that I have done was a tear gas project that I did about 7 or 8 years ago. It involved a guy that was actually in hiding in the attic area of a Amscot type business, and it was a strip mall of 6 different businesses. He was hiding up in the attic, and he thought that once that the cash checking business would close, he would just lower himself down and miraculously steal all of this money. But he lowered himself down before the last person had gotten out of the building, and the lady hit the panic button. So he immediately panicked. The police came, and he went back up in the ceiling area, and they shot 75 canisters in there to get him out. It was really challenging because we had to deal with 5 or 6 different businesses, all of their HVAC units, all of their contents, and working around kind of their schedules and everything. So that was really one of my most challenging moments in the restoration industry.
When I was asked to do this, one project came to mind. It was up in Squaw Valley, and this was probably 2014, 2015. We had a big snow year. This was a 3-story massive cabin up right by Squaw. Back of the house, about 46 feet off the ground because of the hillside. The house had 30 feet of snow on the roof, which collapsed the backside of the roof into the master bedroom, master bathroom. We were called out for emergency snow removal, emergency board up, water mitigation, which was actually ice mitigation. The difficulty factor came in on this project that with the snow weight on the roof, we had to remove all the snow first. This required a crane. All of our guys were wearing snowshoes. We had to secure the roof from the inside. When we got inside the house had about 6 inches of ice on the wall, on the ground. It was like an ice skating rink. So in order to dry that out, we had to bring in big giant portable heaters, desiccant dehumidifiers. Extremely difficult project, lots of X factors, very high end home. We were able to successfully board it up, get the snow off the roof, do the water and snow mitigation, and then we also did the build back on this project.
I'd have to say my most memorable job would be a historical home that we did just outside of Portland. This home was historical in a sense that it was one of the original engineers of Portland, and the home had to remain in its original condition. We couldn't change a thing, no colors, no painting, and it was an oil furnace, and the furnace had puffed back for 30 days. There was soot on everything. Everything was raw, handmade, driftwood from the river just below the home. And even the light fixtures were these mushrooms that way had glazed and used for light fixtures. It took us over a month, but I can't tell you how amazing that experience was. We had some of our best cleaners, and this home looked amazing. The best that the customer has ever seen. They even mentioned how amazing the basement looked because no one ever touched it before. And it took a lot of our expertise, it took a lot of our patience, but the reward at the end was a beautiful home on the river from our history and our community, and it was such a pleasure to be a part of.
The most challenging project I've had in the recent past was a commercial sewage loss, 15,000 cubic feet of raw sewage in a confined space. What made this project so difficult were all the municipalities that were involved, the state, local, building departments, property managers, tenants. What I can tell you is that I believe that communication is the key to our industry and what we're doing today. Ensuring that clear, concise communication happens up and down the job spectrum is the most important thing today. Without good, clear communication, any project, complicated, complex, simple, easy, all of them have a tendency to go astray without good, clean communication.
One of my most difficult jobs was a biohazard remediation, where there was a decomposition, body sat for about a month and a half. He had saltillo tiles in his living room, which we ended up removing half of the living room. The tiles itself is about 2 inches thick. The grout line is about an inch and a half thick. And with all the tile that we did remove, the total ended up being just roughly about 1,000 pounds in weight. So it was a 2-man job, 2-day job, and that one was by far the most difficult just because of the thickness of that tile.
I did a commercial water loss at an assisted living community in eastern Pennsylvania. There was a small fire in the common room on the 3rd floor which set off the sprinklers and flooded all 3 floors in the east wing of the facility. Around 50 units were affected along with the nurse's station and one of the dining rooms. Over 60 residents were displaced into local hospitals and other facilities.
We were called to a loss on December 22nd, 3 days prior to Christmas. When we arrived, the homeowner was very, very upset, worried about her Christmas presents that had already been bought and wrapped. A few under the tree, but most were being hidden from her 4- and 6-year-old in the dining room. When we arrived, the ceilings had already fallen from all the water that the fire department had used to put the flames out. We were also dealing with bouts of downpours with no roof, no ceiling, and everything pouring into the same dining room that the children's presents were in. She really was so upset, thinking that these presents were not able to be given to the children on Christmas morning. So we were quick to start moving the ceiling and the debris off of the presents. We found all of the presents in the dining room, and we took them to our vehicles to be brought back to our office to be cleaned and deodorized so that the children would have them on Christmas morning. Mrs. Homeowner was very skeptical. She did not know the work that we could do and what we could accomplish. And it was a very strong odor on all these gifts, but we were able to tackle that. And with the great eye for detail that the technicians had, they were able to take apart action figures out of boxes, unscrew the little clips that were holding them in. Everything was clean. The boxes were clean, the clips were clean, the action figure was clean and deodorized and put back as if they were brand new. We were able to return all these presents to the homeowner December 24th, just in time for Christmas.
First on the list for most difficult jobs would have to be the United States ship, the USS Cole. October 12, 2000, the Cole was attacked in Yemen. Large hole blown in the side of it by a boat penetrating, well actually not penetrating the hull, but hitting the hull with heavy explosives. The explosives went off, penetrated the hull, and unfortunately, literally, not only did it blow into the bottom of the ship, but it lifted the galley deck up. And of course, everyone was assembling there for food. 17 service members died, another 37 seriously injured. The ship was placed up on a dry dock boat, brought back to the United States of America on that dry dock heavy lift ship into Ingalls Shipbuilding, Pascagoula, Mississippi, where my wife and I's company, Air Quality Specialist at the time, was contracted to effectively take care of the EC&C. That's the environmental control and containment of the repairs of that ship. On her voyage over to the United States, knowing what was damaged, Ingalls was pre-building the modules that would basically fit or replace what was damaged in the ship. The concept here is, as the ship was brought up on the dry dock, Ingalls Shipbuilding cut out and removed the damaged module sections, and they took the pre-built ones and inserted them back in. Now, of course, this went on over multiple months, and then there were multiple upgrades to the ship while she was in dry dock and wet dock in the water afterwards. And that required extensive dehumidification, heating systems, cooling systems, and believe it or not, even humidification for applications of coatings and repair work that had to be going on in the vessel at the time. Now, of course, the modules were removed. They were heavily studied for upgrades for safety, structural strength, and life and health and safety systems to try and avoid the same type of incident that happened and reduce the severity in case it was to happen again. The thing that made it very tough was not the complexity. although it was a very difficult job to do. But heightened security, and of course, the fact that people had died there in defense of their country literally meant that this site was a grave site, and that piece that has been removed and studied is now part of a memorial. And I want to let everyone know that we really think of ourselves as restorers, as the people who put things back together. In this case, very much so. But it was really amazing to be able to put things back together and make it even higher upgrade for our men and women in the United States Armed Forces who are out there always dedicating their lives for our safety back in the United States. So I think that was the toughest job. Very difficult, very complex, high security, lots of emotion involved.
Okay, so one of my most frustrating jobs ever in 30 years was several years ago. I was doing program work for a national insurer, and he called me, the adjuster person called me, he said, can you please get out there immediately? This particular house had flooded before, he just wants me to get on top of it. So I dispatched a couple guys, I got there 5 minutes after them. They were extracting the water out of this house. This was about a 4,000 square foot house, all on one level on concrete. There was no basement, so it was slab. At any rate, I get there and I immediately notice the category 3 because of the smell, and there's tree limbs and leaves floating around in there. So as my guys are extracting, I'm talking to the homeowner, the insured, and I said, hey, have you had a loss in here before? And she said, yeah, I have them 2 or 3 times before when the creek behind my house floods. And of course, we were in the middle of a torrential rain at the time. So anyway, they get started, and I tell her, she asked me, she says, you think this will be covered by my insurance? I said, well, typically a loss out from outside, unless you have insurance or FEMA or a rider, it might not be covered. She asked me, well, what is covered? I said, things like pipe breaks, bathtub overflow, those are typically associated with a homeowner's policy. Anyway, the insurance adjuster calls me a couple minutes later and he asked me, hey Ivan, what type of loss is this? I said, it's category 3. And he says, okay, great. Well, I'll be out there in just a few minutes. I'm about 10 minutes out. So the adjuster's on his way out. My guys are still extracting water. Then walks her son, and he's about 40 to 50 years old. And he looks at me and says, is this loss covered? And I said, sir, I really cannot tell you that for sure because I'm not an insurance adjuster. But I said, the good news is the insurance adjuster's on his way out. He should be here in about 5 minutes. He says, well, I want to know though, what type of loss is covered? And I said, typical things like bathtub overflows, broken pipes, things like that, hot water heaters. And mind you, this is a big house and we're standing in the living room in about 2 inches of water. And it's an open view, open site type of construction. So we can see right into the kitchen. So the son walks over, opens the cabinet doors, and like some kind of Chuck Norris, he starts kicking at the pipes. I mean, he's kicking them. All of a sudden, we got another water loss. This is a category 1 water loss. About 3 or 4 minutes later, the adjuster rolls up and he asked me, hey, Ivan, give me a little background. So I'm standing with the adjuster, the woman owner, the insured, and her son. And I told him, I said, well, it's category 3 for sure. This one over here is category 1. Anyway, he says, well, you told me it was category 3. And I said, I told you it was category 3, and I'm still sticking with it. However, the category 1 came after the fact. And so I asked the son, I said, would you be kind enough to please tell the adjuster what happened? Tell me the truth. I don't want to be a part of this dog and pony show. Well, to my amazement, the son said to the adjuster, well, if it's not covered by outside water, if it's not covered by insurance policy, then I did the right thing. I broke the pipes and we got a covered loss. So the insurance adjuster, to my astonishment, looks directly at the man and the woman and he says, I'm gonna go ahead and cover it. And I gave him this look. I was like, you out of your mind. So anyway, interesting thing about this, why it made it so frustrating, was this particular adjuster only a week or 2 earlier on a loss I was working on the vendor program. He wouldn't pay me the extra $60 that I needed for an extra coat of paint in the bedroom. And so when we went to lunch a week later, I asked him, I said, I just gotta know, why did you cover that loss when you know it was fraudulent? And he said, Ivan, I'm getting ready to retire in 2 weeks. He said, I'm just tired. I don't want to fight any more losses. And that was it. That was his story. He was sticking to it. So that's my story. Hope you enjoy it.